know you. Oh, it is being recorded. Because I know there are a lot of different things you could be doing. So the fact that you say, I'm going to show up here for an hour is very, very cool. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Definitely appreciated. Blessings to everybody. And this is a story salon where we tell stories every kind, every stripe, every way. And some exciting news. I'm working in concert with Merritt, who owns the art parlor, and getting advice from other people so that we can reopen actually live. We can see each other in the flesh, and hopefully that'll be in the next couple of weeks. That would be super swell if that happened. And we're doing everything that we can do right now to, make sure that we got protocols in place, that we conform to the rules as stringently as possible. So when we throw open our doors, in fact, it's not even doors, it's going to be beaded curtains. So we throw open the beaded curtains, you will feel safe and happy to be at the salon. So cross your fingers, dot your I's. In a couple of weeks, we can do that. And we will let you know. So you can come and actually we can do a live show. That means the world to me. So thank you, thank you. And with that, we will continue our Zoom show tonight, which I think is particularly exciting and wonderful because we have several of our newer people who told stories before and who know about the salon. They've done like shows and stuff. So they are groovy, Groovy. They are all groovy people and they have terrific stories. So this is going to be great tonight. And our theme is, I'm going to mess it up. I know, I got it. Our theme tonight is, well, that was a surprise. So you're going to hear 6 terrific storytellers telling stories about what was a surprise for them. And I know each and every one of these people will tell their stories in a way that you'll start going, hey, I bet you I could tell a story about that. And then it'll be you on this Zoom show. So that's how it works. And we're going to start off with a woman who is very, very lovely. I am delighted that she is here. And in fact, I think it's really super cool. When Amber put out the call, does anyone have a story about this theme? She was one of the first people that responded. And she knows a ton of people at the salon. And it is really, really wonderful that she is here because I know for a fact, gosh darn it, that she is a terrific storyteller. So please welcome her, Miss Erica Blumfeld.
When I was a kid growing up in Philadelphia, all I dreamed about was being an actress on Broadway. So when I graduated high school, I immediately moved to New York City. A veteran New Yorker told me, in New York City, be like an exclamation point, not like a question mark. I took this advice to heart and set off on my New York journey with excitement and enthusiasm and without doubt. I knew I had to get a job to support myself in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and that being a waitress / actress was a rite of passage and it would keep my days free. I was in. The only problem is that I didn't have any experience, but I didn't let that deter me. I made a fake resume and I soon landed a job at a busy East Village restaurant. And it turned out that I was the worst waitress. And the manager did not hold back from telling me so. Every night he'd say in my face, "You're so stupid, stupid, stupid." And finally, after a few weeks, I quit and I felt liberated. But then after a few blocks walking toward home, what have I done? I was lucky to have that job. What am I going to do now? And that's when I saw it. Cafe 107, It was a quaint place, like the type of place you would find off a cobblestone road, off the beaten path in Florence. I peeked inside and I saw there were only 20 tables or so. It was dimly lit, and there was this mahogany bar with this woman standing behind it who was radiating power and strength like a queen. I was feeling way more like an insecure question mark than a exclamation point, but my nerves propelled me forward. And I asked for the manager, and she said she was the manager. And I introduced myself and I said, I am the worst waitress, but I'm a really hard worker. And I promise if you show me, I will be the best waitress. A slight amused smile came across her face, and she said, be back tomorrow, 10 a.m., wear all black. And under her guidance, I did become an expert waitress. I could sell anything, even the oldest, crustiest slice of cappuccino mousse pie. I never forgot a face. I once served a very intoxicated Liza Minnelli and got her to stop chain smoking in the restaurant, which was no easy feat. And the Village Voice newspaper wrote us up and mentioned the friendliest and best waitress, me. But after years of waitressing, 4 years, my bunions ached and I was burned out, and I was feeling very discouraged about my acting career, getting very close, but nothing was happening. More rejection from agents and managers and casting directors. You're too fat. You're really not fat enough. Your nose is too big. Your nose really isn't big enough. And I was feeling so discouraged. And it was a really busy night at the cafe, and people were queuing up in line out the door. And there was a man who had been sitting there all day, and he had only had a bowl of soup and basket after basket of bread, which I broke the rules for him because it's only one basket of bread per item. But see, I was the friendliest waitress. But when it was so busy, I asked him, like, so politely, like, do you think you could give up the table? Could you pay now? I'm really sorry. I need the table. And he flipped out. He's calling me rude, and I better not be expecting a tip. And I had just had it. And I crossed the restaurant. I slammed the door open and I said, get out of here. We don't want your money. And he did, as I said, and he crossed the restaurant and he left the restaurant. But before he left, he turned and he started to choke me.
Oh, God.
And everything was moving in slow motion. The cars outside the cafe, the people passing by, the lights from the marquee of the theater across the street. And then I hauled off and I punched him with all my might in his stomach, my survival instinct kicking in. And he dropped his hands from my throat and he stumbled back and he took off down the street. I assured everyone in the cafe that I was okay. And I went outside to have a break, and I was just crying dramatically and wondering out loud, what am I going to do with my life? When I heard this little voice, excuse me. And I turned and I saw this little old woman in a house dress and shoes that were possibly slippers. And she said, I bet you're an actress. And she engaged me in some more conversation. And she told me that she had been a dancer and that back then there were these midnight booze cruises up and down the Hudson, and how she had danced till her feet were dead. And then she looked at me intently and she said, don't let anyone discourage you. And as she walked away, I heard her continue, you hear me? Don't let anyone discourage you, especially the CIA. Those bastards. Sure, she may have been a little detached from reality, But it really felt in that moment and time that the universe had dropped this little angel down for me to remind me to keep on striving for my dreams no matter what. And I wiped my tears and I held my head high and I walked back into that cafe like the exclamation point I had become, knowing that tomorrow morning I would be at that open call, first person in line for an audition. Thank you.
Erica Blumfield. I messed up her name before. I'm so sorry. Please give it up for our first storyteller, Erica Blumfield. Like field of gold or field of dreams. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I lived in New York. I get that. And maybe when she talked about the CIA, maybe she actually meant the Culinary Institute of America. That could be very possible. Although I don't trust the CIA either, but thank you so, so much. And I think I was in that little restaurant because the Village had all those wonderful little places like that. And I know that you were the best waitress, and I'm glad you're not doing that now. Now you're the best storyteller. To hell with waitressing and the CIA, I might add. We are going to move along to a woman. Devin has, I'm so grateful because when we were doing our live shows, which we will go back to, Devin would come regularly. And I so appreciate when people come just to hear stories, just to be a part of our community. It's always so wonderful to look out in the audience and to see people's faces on a regular basis and to know that down deep, they really are just wonderful storytellers. And she is here tonight. And I say, right on. So please welcome her, Miss Devin Kerry.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Hi, everybody. Let's see, I gotta show the props. Okay. It was November 2008. The American people elect Barack Obama to be the 44th president of the United States. A man who would lead our country with integrity, experience, intelligence, and grace. And let's not forget this goofy sense of humor and his killer smile. In a few short months, a brand new, beautiful African-American family would move into the White House. I was elated. I thought, finally, with good leadership, we will be in a great country once again. I turned to my husband, Brad, and said, we have to go to this inauguration to bear witness to this historical event. Luckily, we were able to stay at a friend's house in Baltimore while she was out of town because everything in DC and all the surrounding areas had been booked for months. We got to Baltimore a few days before the inauguration because Mr. Obama was scheduled to speak downtown as part of the Whistle Stop tour on his way to DC. And Brad and I wanted to see him up close. But by the time we got there, the crowd was so huge, we couldn't see him. We could hardly hear him, but we could hear him over the loudspeakers, offering a message of cautious yet confident optimism. When he finished his speech, he was whisked off and back on the train to DC, continuing the infamous Whistle Stop tour that Abraham Lincoln took when he was inaugurated in 1861, stopping along the way to greet all of his supporters. As the people dispersed and the crew started to break down the stage, I looked at Brad and said, quick, get ready to take my picture. I jumped onto the stage and stood up at the podium where our next president of the United States had just been there a few minutes earlier. And I took it all in. Now, I was born in Los Angeles and raised in the San Fernando Valley and have lived here my whole life. I really didn't know what cold was. I did know, however, that my Macy's coat and my fake fur boots were not going to cut it while standing for hours in the freezing snow. So when we got back to our friend's house, I just peeked into her closet and thankfully found knee-high snow boots and a beautiful white hooded down coat that went all the way down to my ankles. I had packed 2 pairs of long underwear, wool pants, gloves, and 2 pairs of wool socks. So I was set. I was going to be warm, right? On Tuesday, January 20th, 2009, Brad and I got our special tickets with Obama's picture on them, which read, "The Inauguration Train." We were on the first train out of Baltimore, heading to DC at 4:30 a.m. I looked around at all the people on the train. Everyone was so quiet and they looked really tired, even though I only slept a few hours myself the night before. I was so excited, I couldn't contain myself. So I jumped up and I said, "Hey, is anybody on this train going to the inauguration?" Everybody started cheering and laughing and saying, I am. We pulled into DC around 5 a.m. and started the 3-mile walk to the Capitol building in the dark. All of the streets were blocked off to all vehicles. People were coming from all directions on foot. And the volunteers were guiding us along the route towards the mall and cheering us on. "You're almost there. You're doing it. Good for you. You're almost there. Keep going." By the time we got through the tunnels and the sun was just starting to rise behind the Capitol building, and I whispered to Brad, "Look at where we are." There were cement barricades everywhere and police with sniper rifles up on the rooftops of the surrounding buildings. We moved in together with the flow of the crowd and ended up center right, close to the Smithsonian, about halfway between the Capitol building and the Washington Monument. Thankfully, there were huge jumbotrons set up all up and down the mall. The ceremonies ran behind schedule, and it wasn't until just before noon that Barack Obama took the oath of office. While being sworn in, he placed his hand on a Bible that his wife Michelle held, the same Bible used by President Abraham Lincoln at his first inaugural. The cheering was deafening. People from all over the world, of all ages, cultures, and races, were hugging each other and crying. It was amazing. The whole world watched this historical event, but we got to be there in person. And I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. Yay! Here we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Devin, you guys look like you were in pre-quarantine. I love that.
Yeah.
It was the cold. It was the cold, had nothing to do with COVID. You guys were just freezing. Oh my God, that's a great story. Oh, makes me long for it. And now, because if you thought that was the end of the story, get out of here. Of course, it's never the end. There is always more. So I love that you guys are doing a tag team. So please now welcome, and thank you, Brad, again for being here. Please welcome, he's a fine storyteller. Welcome, Mr. Brad Kerry.
Thanks. Part 2. My wife and I just experienced history. What an amazing day. The inauguration of the first Black president of the United States. After standing for 6 hours in 1 square foot of space for each of us, including the 1.8 million other people, and the temperature at 17 degrees, the inauguration was over. We made our way down to the Capitol to take some pictures before heading to the Smithsonian to warm up, which was the only building open to the public. After about an hour, huddled together on the floor, we finally got some feeling back in our feet. It was time to head to the train station by way of the subway and back to our friend's house in Baltimore. We headed outside to the first subway station, but it was closed. And each additional one we tried was also closed due to the huge amount of people leaving at once. It was late afternoon, very windy, and the sky was overcast. The temperature was dropping rapidly, so we started to walk the 4 miles to the train station. I noticed Devin was staring straight ahead and kept asking, "Where are we?" I realized she was starting to develop hypothermia. We were too far from the Smithsonian to go back, so I started looking for places to get her into cover out of the cold. Of course, everything was closed, and the area was secured all around the Capitol. No vehicles were allowed. We found areas next to the buildings out of the freezing wind to take breaks. I noticed a row of porta potties a couple hundred feet ahead and tried to get Devin at least there for cover until I figured out what to do. Also, I noticed about 200 yards ahead was a first aid tent. Not looking forward to the wonderful aroma, I decided the first thing to do was to try to warm her up in the porta potty before heading to the first aid tent, when off to my right, about 150 feet away, a taxi cab showed up out of nowhere on the plaza and dropped off a pregnant woman. Realizing there were no vehicles allowed anywhere near the Capitol, I was shocked to see this cab. I immediately told Devin not to move, and I ran as fast as I could towards the cab. I flung open the back door, and knowing that if I ran back to get her, the cab would leave or someone else would grab it, I started screaming for her as loud as I could. You have to understand, there were thousands of people walking about, and trying to get her attention was so hard. But I just kept yelling her name, "Devin, Devin." She finally looked over towards me, and I motioned for her to come to me and yelled, "Run, run." At the same time, this driver was yelling at me to get out. I was not about to leave this cab. She finally made it over to me, and I helped her inside the cab and closed the door. I didn't care if we stayed in there all night. We were so comfortable, and the warmth from the floor heater felt fantastic on our feet. We were not going to get out of this cab anytime soon. The driver had a heavy East Indian accent and seemed scared to death. I tried to calm him down, asked him, "How the heck did you get past all those security checkpoints?" And he said he just kept driving. The police didn't seem to notice him. I calmly told him we needed a ride to the train station and that I would do the talking to the Capitol Police as we left. So we started our journey out of this freezing, crowded mess. People kept banging on the window to share the cab, but realizing we would probably get stampeded with people wanting to shove their way in, I told the driver to please keep the doors locked. We then came upon our first checkpoint. With guns drawn, I think they were as shocked to see the cab as I was, maybe even more so. The driver stopped, rolled down his window, and just kept saying he was sorry. They in turn yelled at him, "How did you get in here?" "Excuse me, officer," I said calmly. "It's not so important how we got in here. It's probably better for you to escort us out as quickly as possible to save embarrassment." He mumbled something under his breath and said, "Just drive on to the next checkpoint. Now get the hell out of here." So he radioed ahead to the next policeman. We stopped there. He had some explicit words for us as well, but sent us through to the next checkpoint and the next. There must have been around 7 checkpoints until we were finally on the main street outside the Capitol area, heading towards the train station. When we arrived at the station, Devin was feeling much better and we were both warm. But the cab driver was so nervous he forgot to start the meter when he picked us up, so the ride was free. However, I left him a substantial tip and thanked him for the amazing journey. Hundreds of thousands of people and 1 taxi meant for us. Yes, what an incredibly historic and lucky day.
Oh, Brad Curry and Devin Kerry. Thank you so much. Oh, that's a great story. I love that. You see what Barack Obama can do? He can get you a cab.
Yeah.
Wasn't really involved, but still, I would like to think that somehow he had the presence of mind to do that. You know, I forgot to mention that Devin had told me about this story. Well, this is before the pandemic when we were still meeting live. And I think this was after the show and she was telling me about it. And I went, my God, that's a fascinating story. So it's the very best thing you could tell it here tonight. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Makes us all feel good. Thank you. I'm going to bring up somebody who also has not done this salon before, but you probably know her because she's done a ton of storytelling shows. She is all over Zoom shows, live shows, just everywhere, anywhere. And I know she is absolutely splendid. So it feels like a really special night that she could be here. So please welcome her, I'll try one more time, Miss Silvana Clark.
Thank you. My husband and I are cheap, and we found the best way to travel and be cheap is through house sitting. And basically, we move into someone's house in exchange for taking care of their pets. And we call ourselves the hermit crabs as we weasel our way into people's houses. And we've been hermit crabs in Japan and Germany and Spain and Australia, even Luxembourg. So I belong to this website. And every day I get about 25 notices of people looking for house sitters. And this one day I got one from a lady, her name was Wendy. She lived in Portugal. And she said that her house was right next to a castle. And she lived by a quaint historical city with shops and restaurants. I'd never been to Portugal. I like castles, so I applied. Within 8 minutes, she responded and told us the day and time we should arrive, gave us what train station to get out of where she would pick us up, and told us that she wouldn't have any email access after this until we arrived. Now, part of my brain is saying, slow down, because normally when we have a house sit, you email back and forth or you Zoom with them just so you get to know what the job entails. So part of my brain is saying, Silvana, slow down, get some more facts. The other part of my brain is like one of those cheesy motivational posters, and it's saying, live life to the fullest, take a risk. 3 weeks later, we were in Portugal. We got off the train where we were supposed to, and we were in the middle of nothing, barren landscape. The only thing we saw were Portuguese tumbleweed going down the road. We waited an hour, and finally this beat up VW screeches to a halt in front of us. And Wendy says, I was shopping. I forgot you were coming. There's not much room for you. So we scrunch into her little car. We've got our suitcases on our laps, and we've got her holding her toilet paper over our head. We get close to her house, and I say, oh, where's the castle? And she says, the castle is only in my mind. We get into her house, and it reeks of puppy pee and warm canned dog food. And she uses the same spoon to scoop out the dog food as she does to stir our stew for dinner. It's my own personal version of Hell's Kitchen. Let me show you the animals, Wendy says. She takes us outside to a dog kennel, and she says, those are my 2 donkeys. Now, my daughter had a horse. I know they are horses, but she insists they are donkeys. They love oranges, she says. And she pulls an orange off the tree and throws it into the dog kennel. The horses ignore her. And plus they're standing in this sludge of several inches of just decomposing oranges because they don't like oranges. Follow me, says Wendy. So she takes us around the corner, and there's this huge covered cage. It's about the size of a kindergarten classroom. It belongs to her highly aggressive parrot. She looks at my husband, Alan, and says, if you value your face, you'll never go in there. Because her parrot hates men and dislikes women. His name is Cuddles, by the way. So she shows Alan how to take a peanut and go to the far end of the cage on the outside and sort of wiggle this peanut, which distracts Cuddles. So he goes down to get the peanut. I'm supposed to open the cage, run in, change the food and water, and run back out, slam the door shut before Cuddles comes and attacks me. And then suddenly Wendy gets in her car and she starts driving away. And out of the window, she yells, "Just make sure you get Randy walking before I get back." And I'm yelling, "Stop, stop. Well, what are you talking about?" She tells me that Randy's legs became paralyzed a week ago. Randy the rooster. Then she starts driving and simply says, "Give him some therapy so that he's walking when I get back." And she is gone. So I'm standing there with horses that don't know their identity, an aggressive parrot, and a paralyzed rooster. And my husband and I are just basically hermit crabs. We look for Randy. He's sitting in a pile of dust, flies all around him, sitting in his own poop. But my husband becomes a rooster rehabilitation specialist and says, "I think he needs water therapy." So we get this big tub, and Alan puts Randy inside the tub, and we're hoping that Randy's legs will, kind of do a little rooster swim stroke and get some strength. Randy sinks. The water is keeping him clean. So 3 times a day, we put Randy in the water. Alan holds him, and then I hold on to Randy's scrawny little rooster legs, and I move them back and forth in the water to build up strength. A week goes by, and there's no progress. So Alan says, "I'm going to build him a therapeutic walking device." He gets this big, large purse, cuts 2 holes out for legs, and we put Randy inside the bag with his legs dangling, and then his head is still out of the bag. And Alan attaches a bungee cord to the handles. So basically, he has made a Johnny jump up for a rooster. And every day after the water therapy, we hold on to this bungee cord and we walk Randy up and down the driveway with his legs coming down to touch the ground to hopefully build up strength so he can bounce back. A week goes by, no progress. Wendy comes back and she's not really very upset. So we quickly say goodbye and we rush off to be hermit crabs in France, where we don't have to rehabilitate a rooster. A week later, I get an email from Wendy. She finally took Randy to the vet, and the vet diagnosed him with a rare form of parasitic worms that were eating all of his internal organs and all of his muscles. And the vet suggested that Randy be euthanized. But Wendy took him home and cooked him for dinner. Thank you.
Oh, God. Silvana Clark. Thank you. Oh, God. Oh, my God. Thank you so much. That is like one of the most horrific and wonderful stories I think I have ever heard. That's the kind of story where you go, gosh, you know what? I wish the person who we rented this house from was a serial killer. I would have preferred that over this.
There's a sign there, a lesson there.
A lesson. Oh my God. But see, you know what? God bless you guys. You could have gone straight to the authorities. You tried to help Randy out. You tried to help the horses out. Bless you. Bless you. So you're a better woman than I am. I'm telling you. Thank you. So glad that you were here tonight to tell that story. Thank you. Our next storyteller is Cheryl. And I got to tell you, not a story, an anecdote. Cheryl's been telling stories here at the Salon for quite some time. And the last time I saw her, we were talking was actually, I think like a week before or 2 weeks before we all got shut down in March. And we had agreed to meet somewhere, I don't even remember, Reseda, somewhere. Yes. And I remember I was coming from my chiropractor and I had the worst sinuses. I kept blowing my nose, and I was so afraid that people would think that I had some sort of horrible disease, but I didn't. I just had sinuses. And Cheryl was so lovely, and just, I cannot believe she thought, this is a foul, foul woman. but we talked, we had a wonderful time, and then I haven't seen her for a year and a half. She is here tonight. I can say without fear of disagreement, she is a bright and shining light. Her stories are true and wonderful, and a sheer joy in every way. Miss Cheryl Farrell.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, like the rest of the United States, I've been on lockdown. And last month in June, there was an easing of the restrictions, and I dared to go out and return to some of the things that I took for granted for so long and could not do for a year. And one of those things was to get a pedicure. So I went to my stylist. You can imagine what these toes look like, never having seen the light of day for a year. And the lady was kind. I mean, she didn't grimace too much, but I got through the pedicure. And I took an immediate beeline to my favorite shoe store, because now I can buy some shoes that can show my toes. My favorite shoe store is Designer Shoe Warehouse, DSW. I am a card-carrying, frequent flyer. They call us shoe lovers. So I hadn't been to the store over in Thousand Oaks for a year or so. And when I walked in, the design, the setup of the store had completely changed. Normally in the front are your stylish daytime shoes, your work shoes, your heels. But now up front, we're nothing but sneakers and walking shoes and flip-flops. So I had to make my way to the back of this cavernous retail store to find shoes that I could show off my pedicure. So I go up and down the aisles, and I'm not quite seeing what I want, but then just over the ridge, atop this column of shoes, are these little shoe angels. Hello, come by us. We want you to wear us. So I venture over to this section where this beautiful shoe was sitting there waiting for me. It was like an Art Deco in a shoe. Beautiful colors, a strap. Well, wait, I can show you what it is. Yes. Platform shoe, beautiful color heel, and this beautiful bow. Oh, it was singing my name. So I pull out the largest size that would fit, and it was a 7.5. I'm an 8. I'm wide and short in stature and in my feet. I'm not too proud to tell you I need an 8. So I go to the front of the store, talk to the clerk, and I said, do you have any larger sizes in the back? He says, oh, I'm sorry, Miss Farrell, you know, we'd have to order it for you, but because you are a shoe lover, we can ship it to you for free and you'll get it in 2 days. Okay. 2 days later, the shoe angels deliver my shoe. And by the way, it's a l'artiste shoe, which is French for the artist. So I get my l'artiste shoes and I have a Cinderella moment. I'm going to slip my size 8 foot into this shoe and go on and celebrate life. I technically get my foot in there, but it's feeling a little snug. And I'm thinking, if I have a pastrami sandwich or anything with some sodium, this is not gonna be pretty. I'm not gonna be able to walk in these shoes, but I'm supposed to have these shoes. The shoe angels found me. So for about a week, I would go back to the shoe and think maybe I lost some weight or maybe it stretched from the last time. But 3 weeks of this, it was not happening. These were new shoes that were just sitting in the closet. As inspiration goes, I woke up one morning and I go, I know what I'll do. I'll go to my shoe cobbler, my shoe repair guy, who has done magic on all kinds of leather goods for me. I thought one of two things. They could either stretch that strap over my foot, you know, put some kind of conditioner on it, or he could insert some elastic, a little elastic band to give me a scotch more room. So as I'm about to go out to the shoe repair guy, I pull out the shoes to take one last look at them to see where I would recommend putting this elastic. To my surprise, when I lifted up this shoe and pulled off the the flower, I heard this noise. That's the sound of Velcro on a adjustable strap. Okay? I don't know about you, but I don't usually get instructions on how to wear a shoe. I thought you just put your foot in there and it would work. So I'm excited. I was able to adjust that strap after 3 weeks, not knowing that I had a solution to the problem. The next day I went to the dentist, and you're laying there on the dental chair, you know, you lay back. And while I'm waiting for the hygienist to come, all I could see are my little feet right in front of me. I'm looking at my heavenly shoes. The hygienist comes in and she says, "Oh, your shoes are beautiful." And I say, "Yes, and they fit too." The moral to the story is sometimes the solution to your problem is embedded in the problem. I was looking for all these external ways to find my solution, and it was there all along. And sometimes you'll get your answer. It won't be immediate, but you will get your answer. And I've carried my Velcro and the meaning of life story with me for the last month or so. I'll close with a line adapted from a song from a famous and familiar song singer, Nancy Sinatra. She said, "Shoes are made for walking, and that's what I'm gonna do." Thank you.
Cheryl Farrell. Oh, thank you, Cheryl, so much. I had no idea that Velcro could solve a lot of my problems. It makes me thrilled and happy. My life is going to be easy street from now on. Thank you, Cheryl.
You're
so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome.
And we are going to close out this show with a man that is our producer of the Story Salon. I've said this on a regular basis, but I'm so grateful to him. He's one of the best dramaturgists I know. He loves the art of writing because he does it all the time. And more than almost anyone else, he has this way of getting into a story so you really understand what it's about. He really can tell a story. He's just gosh darn good. Gosh darn it. I hate to curse, but that's the case. Please welcome him, Mr. Dan Farron.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you. I appreciate that. I pushed all the right buttons, right? Everything, you can hear me and all that other stuff, right? I would hate to not be heard. This story is so new and so fresh to me that I'm concerned that I can tell it correctly, but we're going to give it a shot, okay? Now, on Saturdays, I spend an hour talking to a therapist on the phone. I'm sure anyone who knows me knows that's not really a big surprise, but I do. A little tip, if you're talking to a therapist on the phone, you get 50 minutes. If you can make your therapist laugh, you can stretch that into an hour. So that's one thing to remember about that. But we talk about a varied amount of things. And sometimes I talk about how when people compliment me or thank me for something or whatever, I have a tendency to kind of not completely brush it off, but not to really respond to it really, really well. It may be my Midwest upbringing. You know, it's not right to get all puffed up in the chest and everything. But my therapist said to me, it was very interesting. She said, "So you don't think that you deserve a compliment?" And I said, "Oh, no, that's not the situation at all. I mean, ask anybody, ask my wife to my right here. She'll tell you that I have a very healthy ego, but I just don't expect it from other people." And I think I've gotten into a habit, especially recently after coming out of this and still battling the COVID situation, by not seeing a lot of people or just how high strung a lot of people are. There's a tendency to kind of keep to yourself and maybe not so much open up to people or to even to talk to people or let them know. Now, one of the things that I felt in the last year is I felt like I wasn't thanking people enough. So I always make a point of when somebody does something for me, big, small, it doesn't matter what it is, to thank them and let them know that it means a lot to me. When I leave my job as a security guard in the evenings, I always tell the guard who's still there to be careful and thank you very much for helping me with whatever we needed to do today. I've always felt that's very important. I've talked about it many times. When I went to college, there was a teacher named Carolyn C. who was very much a writing mentor to me. And she used to talk about how she would write a thank you note to somebody every day and mail it and not expect the note to come back, because that's not what it was all about. It was about thanking someone who did something for you. So, life goes on. And during the past week, it's been kind of a weird and rough week, especially at work. It's been long hours. And now that the mask thing is back inside, we have to get people to put on their mask. And that's a little difficult. We've had some rows with some people who don't want to, and it's uncomfortable. It's something that I'm not comfortable with, but it needs to be done. And I firmly believe in it. And that's the rule of the office. But I have to tell you, in the 9 years that I've been a security guard, the only time I ever felt like someone was going to strike me or attack me physically was when I was having a mask conversation with people. So it's been one of those kind of weeks. And I looked at Facebook this morning, and an old friend of mine that I've known for a long, long time wrote about a memory that involved me. And he talked about it, as a lot of you know, I am a jack of all trades. I've worked in stand-up comedy and storytelling, professional wrestling, all kinds of stuff. Taught stand-up comedy at traffic school, did a whole bunch of things. But he talked about a show that I had promoted 27 years ago and how that show changed his life. And I read it and I thought, oh, that's really nice. And I made a little joke and I hearted it and liked it and whatever. But as the day went on, I started to feel like maybe I hadn't given enough response to this. I mean, and I went back and I read it again, and the guy that wrote it has a line in there where he said, "Going to this show changed my life." And I was kind of thunderstruck by that, because it's not often you do something that to you is no big deal. I mean, I didn't make any money on this show. We lost money on the show, but it changed his life. And I never realized that before. And so I went back and wrote to him about how much that meant to me, and how much it truly, deeply meant a lot to me, and thanked him for that. And then another friend, a guy that I barely know in Canada that I've become friends with on Facebook, wrote underneath that, "Dan Farron, making memories that last a lifetime." And again, I was just blown away by all that, because to me, it was just something I did. It was just some sort of art. And let's face it, anything you create is art. It was just something of art that I created just in passing. And then I started to think about more and more about how we connect with people more often than not. And how we oftentimes can do things for people and help them. And do something that's not a big deal for us, but to that person, that's something they remember, and they will never forget it. And I've had those situations too. Over the pandemic, I started watching a lot of these reaction videos. It's people, mostly young people, watching movie trailers or TV shows or listening to songs for the first time, and their reaction to them. And there'll be other times when they'll be watching something and it will bring them to tears. And I used to be like, I would make fun. You a bunch of nerds, what are you doing? But then I started to think about how wonderful it is to create something that somebody else will be that moved by. And, when we tell stories, that's what happens. When we paint a picture, that's what happens. When we plant flowers, that's what happens. And it's really easy to just kind of push that off to the side and think it's no big deal. So I'm basically going to tell you something you probably know deep down. It really is a big deal. And it's something that you should try to do in your day-to-day life. Let people know that, that you appreciate what they've done for you, and realize that when you, I mean, for God's sake, I wouldn't be a writer if it wasn't for my great-grandmother in Abbott and Costello. There's a combination for you. My great-grandmother gave me a book every year for my birthday from like 5 years old on, and turned me into this voracious reader. Abbott and Costello, I didn't know what they were doing, but I wanted to do it. And I did. So when you go through life out there day to day, realize that everything you do, everything you say can really affect somebody. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my TED Talk for the evening. Thank you very much. Beverly, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Dan Barron.
Beverly, I want to thank you also, because when I was a little small child sitting on my mother's knee when I was like 1 year old, I was watching you on Square One television. And
you are
and
a
you made
vicious man.
You meant so much to me back then, Beverly. I appreciate it.
Don't listen to anything he says. Lies, all lies, fake news. Thank you, everyone, so much. I got to tell you, you know what? I don't know what I would do if not for these nights where, let's give a shout out to the wonderful Amber Greenberg, because without her, I don't know how we even would be doing this stuff. We would be in this waste. We would not even a wasteland. We'd be in an alley of not knowing how to do stuff. So bless you in every way, Amber. But it always is like this. It's an incredible goodness to have you all tell your stories and to share this. So blessings and thank you. And let me give a shout out to all the storytellers. Magnificent night. Thank you, Erica Blumfield. Thank you so much. Thank you, Devin Kerry. Thank you, Brad Curry. Thank you, Silvana Clark. Thank you, Cheryl Farrell. And thank you, Dan Farron, so very much. And just check out the Facebook page. I'll be putting up a video.
She put a heart out.
What? I'm pouring my heart out because we will be reopening again. Blessedness. Hopefully that'll be in the next couple of weeks. We'll let you know what's going on, what you need to do, what we need to do, but we look forward to this in every way. So shout out to everybody. Thank you for a terrific night. Big love, everybody. Big love. And thank you, Amber.